Hi everyone, and welcome to Farm Hercology. I am a board-certified, residency-trained clinical pharmacist with over 10 years of practice experience. My goal is to provide the resource that I wish I had when I was a student and new practitioner. At pharmacology.com, you can find study units for all areas of clinical practice with charts, complete notes, illustrations, and videos like these. So follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and Pinterest to stay connected. Let's get started. So if we represent active drug by this purple rectangle, and we'll show activity as these dashed lines right here, and then we represent the inactive drug as simply a plain purple rectangle, we get from active to inactive drug via its metabolism, and that is achieved via the P450 enzyme. Specifically, most predominantly, this is achieved via oxidation. Okay, so we're gonna put active here and then inactive. Okay, now this conversion allows the body to excrete the inactive form of the drug, so it's going to eliminate either via the urine or fecal matter. So this is what happens at baseline. Now let's see what happens if we introduce a CYP inducer, okay? So if we do an inducer, we're going to enhance this pathway, okay? So we're gonna get more conversion of active drug to inactive drug, okay? Which is going to further enhance this pathway. So induction of a CYP enzyme is going to lead to increased conversion of active to inactive drug and increase its elimination. So if we have a higher amount of inactive drug, we can see the correlation between CYP enzyme induction and the potential for lower drug efficacy. Let's now consider what happens in the inhibition of the P450 enzymes. So instead, we're going to downregulate P450 activity. Now, it's not necessarily that we're moving in the opposite direction, right? We cannot necessarily change the direction of inactive to active form, but rather what happens is if we inhibit P450 enzymes, we are slowing down their activity. So essentially, we are inhibiting this pathway. So then what happens is that we get an accumulation of the active form of the drug. Because we're not going to the inactive form, we have reduced elimination and increased accumulation of the active drug. And that is how inhibition of the P450 enzymes can lead to toxicity, because we're accumulating active drug instead of conversion to inactive drug and then elimination. Let's now consider P-Glycoprotein. Again, we're going to show it at baseline and then show the effects of inhibition and induction. So if we draw our cell membrane, we're going to include a P-Glycoprotein or PGP pump right here within the membrane. And we're going to designate here as our intracellular, and then up here is going to be our extracellular. Now, drug can come into the cell in mostly one of two ways. It will passively diffuse from the extracellular space into the intracellular space, or it's going to use a transporter protein. So transporter protein can bring drugs from the extracellular space into the intracellular space. Now, for a drug to be active, it has to be inside the cell. So we're going to continue with our purple box representation of active drug. It has to be inside the cell for it to carry out its effect. If it's outside of the cell, it cannot exhibit its effect, so it's going to be inactive. Now, if we consider the PGP pump simply for what it is a one-way transport system. It is a one-way efflux pump. It only pumps from the inside of the cell to the outside of the cell. So if we enhance this activity of the PGP pump, we're going to get more transport of the active form inside of the cell to the outside of the cell where it becomes inactive. Okay, so if we increase the PGP's activity, we're just going to enhance this pathway even more. So if we kind of write that out, we will see that increasing PGP is going to lead to an increase efflux, lower concentrations of active drug, and lower concentrations of active drug means lower efficacy. Okay. Now, if we consider the opposite, if we inhibit the PGP pump, we're keeping more of the active drug inside the cell where it can carry out its effect. So if we inhibit PGP activity, we keep more active drug. We're going to increase active drug. And so more active drug means essentially higher efficacy, but also an increased risk of toxicity, which is the real concern, an increased risk of toxicity. Head over to pharmacology.com for the complete study unit.